Hi everyone, my name's Andrew, and this video is going to be about an introduction to explaining a little bit about how I overcame bipolar 2. Now, you're going to have heard from your therapist and so forth that that's not really possible, but I'll come to that in a moment. But I thought I'd show you where I am at the moment. I live up in the tropics, far north Queensland in Australia, and earlier in the year we had a cyclone, it brought some serious rain. I think it may have been the heaviest rainfall ever. Anyway, so this, you can still see it looks a bit devastated, and it actually has been. I mean, obviously you don't know what it looked like beforehand, but it was called Lake Placid, and it's just completely changed the landscape. Not just here, because the river went up about nearly 10 meters, and it's even up further. I live up in the ranges. You see the river up the top there. And it's just absolutely incredible how much it has moved just the landscape. It's incredible. Like, that's permanent unless there's another big flood. Anyway, I thought I'd just show that. But it's a lovely day here. I'll show again over there. It's very, very beautiful. It's a beautiful, peaceful place to be. So some of you may already know this, who have been on my channel or other things, my websites and things, that I wrote a book about this in 2020, how I overcame bipolar, and I used the word very strongly, cured. I cured myself of bipolar. Now, that's a very strong term to use to a lot of people, so how dare you say something like that? Well, if we looked at the definition of cured, which I don't actually have here right now, but if you do look that up, no, we're going to do that right now whilst I'm on the phone if I can, just a moment. No, can't do that, okay. But if you look up the definition of cured, you'll basically see, and I'm not saying this verbatim, but essentially, it's really to have no symptoms at all, like especially for a period of time. And it's been coming up to, well, it must be like 7 years now of no symptoms, and no medications either. Now, I'm not saying everybody can necessarily go medication free completely. Everybody's different. There's all sorts of reasons why some people may need a little bit something. I don't know for sure. I'm not a doctor. But I do think a lot of people potentially minimize it, if not get off that stuff eventually, not straight away. There's a lot of work you need to do beforehand. And so the problem is, anyway, with therapists and so forth, is they put into your mind an idea and they say, we can't cure you. But they cannot cure anybody through the current system that they're using. They're not saying you can't be cured through an alternative, because they don't necessarily look at those alternative ways of approaching things. And I know the word alternative, for want of a better word, because I know alternative often has not the greatest association at times. People think, oh, it's just a bunch of wacky stuff, doesn't do anything or whatever. And I don't mean that. See, I've really gone through it to get to where I am today. I had to map out my own path to work this out. So I've been through a tremendous amount. Something that not one therapist in any way has been able to achieve, I achieved. And I mean, I wrote about this obviously in my book, which I'll put a link down below too if you're interested in reading that. It's not very expensive. Also have an audio version too now, so anyone who doesn't like to read. So what I'm trying to get at here is that I'm still on the forums and things. I read people's comments and I add my 2 cents worth here and there to try to help people wherever they're at, and just give them some, whatever their problem is, give them some insight to at least what I think. And generally it's received very, very well. Well, actually, it's always been received well. I'm not trying to push anything. I'm just sharing. I want to help, and that's why I wrote the book in 2020, was to try and help. But what I'm trying to get at here is, it's about belief systems. So we put a lot of our power over to other people. So we do that with doctors. We'll think, okay, they said so, they said this, therefore that must be true. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But if we have a good look at the track record, it's not the greatest in general with the medical field. And a lot of the times you ask them, even if you have a disease of any kind, how did I get this? Sometimes they shrug their shoulders. I don't know. There's a lot they don't know, yet they claim to know. And I'm not really standing out by myself here and saying this, because there's, in many different fields, you'll find people saying pretty much the same thing, who've gotten out of it. They're not related to the medical field, but they've found an alternative to help people in some capacity that's contrary to what the so-called professionals are telling you. And I call it so-called, that's right. Because let's be honest, how effective has your therapist been? Look, I'm sure there's a number of you that would be saying, oh, it's great, it's working well for me, medicines, all that. That's great. I'm really happy. I don't change anything. It's great. It's working for you. You're happy with that? Fantastic. But I know from personal experience, but also just listening to people, reading about things, that even I read one the other day, someone was seeing a number of therapists each week, like 3 different therapists per week. And it's like, well, you've been doing that for a while and you're not getting any better, so maybe that's not working. And we see that with medications. That's why they'll say, oh, we'll put you on a new medication. Okay. Well, the other thing too about that, they're not curing anything, because all they're doing is treating symptoms. They put all this stuff into the too hard basket and it can't be fixed, and they don't really understand a lot about it. Now, I'm not saying I know every single thing about it, but I've had it and I've overcome it. So I think I've got some authority here to speak about this. Unlike, as I said, a lot of these therapists telling people what you can and cannot do. And the problem with that is, sorry, I don't have my little clip. The problem with that is that having that sort of power, for instance, if I put my authority onto someone else, not authority, but give them my power over to them, like we do with doctors, say, okay, I just believe you, I trust you 100%, you know what you're doing, which is what we do. It's what we do. We assume all professionals, whether it's a tax agent or whatever it may be, and of course, there's a reason that we'd feel that way. They should know more than we do. And they do, in the capacity of in terms of psychiatrists and psychologists, they do know things more about the brain and the body than the average person does. But they only know it from one point of view. And the thing is, because we give our power over to them, we're also allowing our minds to be altered by a belief system and saying, okay, this person said this, therefore it must be true. So then if you listen to someone like me thinking, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I've had a lot of flack over the years, and I've given a lot of free information and stuff that's even useful, whether people want to believe me or not. It's actually a lot of factual stuff too. But because of their paradigm, their belief that, no, this is how it's always done, there's no other way, you don't know what you're talking about. See, this is what happens. People close their minds to what actually other things that could potentially help them. And that's what I'm trying to do in these videos coming up, is that I want people to help improve their lives in many different areas. I just want to share my knowledge, take it or leave it. It doesn't matter to me ultimately, but it matters to me in the sense of I don't like to see people suffer. And if I've got something I can share and impart into your life in some way, then it's going to be beneficial making these videos, to help some people. So going back to the idea of curing. So I'd say most people would agree that 7 years of no symptoms and no medication, well, sounds pretty bloody cured to me. I don't know. I don't know how I should define it. And I've been through so many more hardships, tremendous hardships the last, the last particular 4 years, but even started about 6 years ago. And the old version of myself, that mindset would have crumbled, would not have survived. I probably would have, taken my life, to be honest, in a number of circumstances, because I wouldn't have had the mental fortitude and a whole bunch of other things. Not to mention, I worked on a lot of things in my life. I've spoken about this in my book, just about how the approach to getting better is a holistic approach. That is, we can't just look at one thing in isolation to the others. Now, I know some therapists may mention, diet to some degree. They'll say, don't eat this thing and don't eat that. Some do, some don't. And I've touched on this with a number of people just recently, actually, online, that they weren't aware about how certain foods could affect them. So, for instance, having stimulants such as coffee and sugar, they're stimulants and they're going to bring you upwards. And as a result, it can actually exacerbate mania. Now, the more of that you have, the more likely that's going to push up there. Now, I think some people are probably more likely to have these sort of effects in their mind. But look, I've seen this too in people who aren't necessarily diagnosed with anything. They have too much coffee and they get pretty hyped up, right? It seems pretty common sense. If you're drinking anything with caffeine, maybe you want to cut down on that, or cut it out if you can altogether, such as even some teas. It's not all. Some teas actually, black teas actually have more caffeine than coffee. And also sugar, brings us up and pulls us down. It creates a crash, and that can also then bring us down to a lower mood. So what I'm trying to get along the point here, because this, I can't contain all the information in this video, but what I'm really trying to get at here is that there is an alternative way, and I want you to open your mind that the way you're currently doing things, if it's not working for you, then, you know, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. And if it's not working, then you're going to get it's not working. Okay, whether it's the medications, whether it's the therapist, or whatever it may be. And I've seen this. I have seen this myself. I experienced this myself as well. But over the years of, you know, people seeing the same therapist, and they might be seeing 10 years, and you know, it's lovely having a chat and all, but you want to get better, you know. And that's the thing too, that we should have some expectations of them too, our therapists. And you know, you should ask them too, look, well, how long are we going to be doing this for? You know, some of them say lifelong, but you know, if you have a look around, it's actually a bit harder online nowadays, seems to hide a lot of this stuff, but there are other people around who've done similar to myself in different ways and try to write about it, and but it gets dismissed. It really does get dismissed, and it's a shame, because again, it's holding people back from a potential of looking in different directions to really promote and help themselves in their lives. Oh, sorry, I'll just pause there for a moment. Sorry, I was just saying. So yeah, so it can hold people back from potential of looking at other alternatives or alternative methods. But, and I will get into other videos. I said I can't put it all in this one video. But what I'm trying to get to is just looking at myself as a case study that I have done this. I was 105 kilograms at my worst weight, and I'll maybe put a photo of that up somewhere. And I was, you know, the medications weren't helping me. They were making me worse, a lot of them. And plus I was fat. Something, this is like a double whammy, you know. That wasn't making me feel, I'd never been fat before. And obviously I've lost the weight now. I'm about 70 kilograms now. And, you know, the thing about therapy too is that we put too much on it to say, oh, if I go to a therapist's office, they know what they're doing, they'll fix it. And look, sometimes that happens to people, but the results are not that great, you know, honestly. Looking at the various comments I read, that people are struggling, suffering all the time. So it's obviously not an effective system that's people are currently using. So what we need to do, what you need to do, we all need to do this. We need to take total accountability. Hang on just a moment. Okay, hopefully that's better. I think the camera's a little had a little bit of a smudge on it. We need to take accountability for ourselves, absolutely. So we can use our therapists, if we're going to use them, as a guide, as they should be. They should help us guide us through our own stuff, because no one's a better therapist than ourselves. We may get a little stuck and say we don't know what to do and all this sort of stuff, but with a little bit of guidance, we can actually get to the depth of our issues and take control. But where we need to take control too is we can't just keep turning up to the therapist office and just, you know, every week or however often you go and think, all right, just coming here is going to make things better, because that's not how it goes. We need to take absolute responsibility for ourselves. We need to do that in many ways. We need to start eating better. We do need to start exercising. I mean, there's the basic things, you kind of know this already. And I mean, as I said in my book, I cover a lot of this stuff, but the main aspect that I have found amongst all these other things, and that's why I said it's holistic, you got to look at everything together, but the main factor is we've really got to get to our trauma. And, you know, psychologists help us to that to some degree. I don't think they go far enough, because, and I know it's not a unique opinion, people think similar to myself in different ways, or different ways that they look at it, but they're not, you know, don't find that the current method is always that effective for different reasons. That you might look at belief systems, for instance, using CBT. You might look at, just belief system you have about yourself, about something, and that's all good and well, but that still doesn't get to the core of it, because, and as I'm developing and finding this more and more, since I've even written the book, is the emotional aspect, and emotions do get trapped in the body. You know, there's an interesting book on PTSD called, you know, The Body Keeps a Score. And I just want to show you this. I hope it does it justice, but it's just so beautiful. Gosh, it's beautiful. I don't think it's doing justice. We'll press that. There we go. It's a little bit better. But I'm not the greatest. Anyway, not the greatest phone, but Very beautiful where I'm standing. So I was just sort of saying that, so we need a holistic approach to this, but we need to look at the emotional aspect, because our emotions get stored in our body. They truly do. And I've discovered this through particularly doing yin yoga, which is deep stretching. So it's holding stretches for a long period of time. So also people refer to it as it's deep muscle stretching, I think, something like that. But it's actually the fascia that we're stretching. So the fascia. So we need to be holding these stretches usually between minimum 90 seconds. That's how long you need to wait till the fascia starts to stretch. But it really, you want to be at least 2 minutes at least per stretch. And when you start off, that's actually quite a challenge. And I have found that the more I've been doing this, and I've been doing this for quite some time now, that I'd feel these dull aches in my body, and then I would lean into them, because most of our emotions are trapped around the hip area, the hip flexor area, and there's a muscle there called I think it's pronounced psoas muscle. I think that's how you pronounce it, with a P. I may have mispronounced that. And so once we start stretching these things, we release, these emotions have a chance to release and come up. Now, being the way that I am, I'm pretty hardcore with things. All right, I'm going to throw myself into something. I'm going to do it hardcore. I'm going to push the limits, which I don't recommend you do. So with the yin yoga, I've been pushing, almost up to 20 minutes with some stretches, which is a long time. And I can tell you, sometimes the next day I'm like, oh, I can feel that. And there's this dull ache sometimes still that goes a little deeper sometimes. Sometimes it relieves it. But then what can happen is really interesting. I can sometimes feel this wave of sadness for no reason. Okay, and now I know that people with bipolar can feel that anyway, but this is different. This actually is quite different. This is actually, I've done enough practice and experimenting with this now to know that this is actually absolutely related. And I had to even research it, because I had a hunch that this was going on, because there was other times where I would do these really big stretches, and then maybe an hour or two later, my mood would change. I think I kind of feel a bit angry. Why am I feeling angry? Nothing's happened. And anyway, time's gone on. That stuff's really dissipated, and I'm thinking, well, I feel really different, and I do feel different. This is the thing. From doing this stuff, I feel so much different. If I leave it a couple of days too, after doing a big stretch like that, I really notice how good I feel. And it's almost like, weight's lifted off, not entirely off my shoulders, but like another chip has gotten off me. And it's and in a sense, it's shown me how deep the healing process is, because I've already done quite a lot. And then I think, oh, there's still more in me. Wow, okay. But what I was going to get at, so that psychology is okay, and I'm not dissing it, not saying don't go and see anybody or anything like that. But what I think needs to happen, well, I really do. Where we're going to go deeper, I'm just talking about the yin yoga, but the emotion aspect. But there's also another way we can get at that too, through our emotions, and that is, there's a certain method that I had learned to release these things from the subconscious, these emotions. So we may have a belief system. Let's say there's a belief system. A lot of people have a belief system, let's say around money. Okay, as an example, I know it's not related specifically to bipolar, but I'll just use that. That maybe they feel they don't deserve to have money. They, for whatever reason, maybe they grew up without it, or they were told something, whatever the reason, how it started. They've got a series of belief systems around, that they don't deserve to have money. So even if they're given money, they'll subconsciously, sabotage themselves without realizing, so that they never have it. They always lose it. Okay, so that needs to be getting rid of. Now, what really needs to be getting rid of is not just changing the belief system; it's changing the emotions attached to the belief system. So, for instance, you could have anxiety around money. Okay, that needs to be taken out. Could be pain or shame or guilt, doubt. Jealousy. There's a myriad of different negative emotions that can be attached to us inside our bodies, and we need to clear those out too. And that's only one part still. That's only the emotional aspect. But what we need to really do, if we really want to do the work, and we need to do it ourselves. And I do plan to write something on this. It'll take me some time, but I've started already a little while ago. We need to look at different aspects of our lives. We need to face these things. We need to understand what we felt at the times these things happened in our lives, and how we created these things. We've got to go deep. Okay, now that's not the easiest thing to do in the world, and you're not going to do it overnight. Okay, But this is really fundamental in my opinion, that as much as all the other stuff is important, you know, the holistic approach that I was talking about, like, again, what goes in my book, I talk about so many things about this, you know, how many different things that can affect us in our mindsets. So it makes me want to jump on another thing here now. Well, you know, the key thing I'm going to say to getting better, I guess, is this. Even though there's a little bit of a tangent from where it's going, I guess, you know, there's a bit of a tangent on different aspects of this video, but ultimately, to get better, you have to become a different version of yourself. That's it. Now, that entails so many things in that, but that's it. You need to transform who you currently are to a higher version of yourself. So, well, maybe I should try and think about my old self. I can tell you, I'm nothing like who I used to be. I've transformed dramatically, absolutely dramatically. Because I thought differently. My mindset was different. You know, what I listened to in terms of content wasn't uplifting my mind. It was bringing me downwards. You know, whether it be music or movies or whatever it is. I mean, I do get into that in my book again, but I won't touch that right now. I can come back to another video. But our mindset is so important, and clearing up all of these negative self-talk beliefs and so forth. And now, it's part of what I was saying before, it's these belief systems that we hold, and this critical self-talk, and a whole bunch of myriad of things. There's too many things to say in this one video about that. But we need to transform ourselves. You know, pick a higher ideal of yourself. If you're already overweight now, well, wouldn't a higher ideal of yourself be someone who's, you know, more in shape? And I'm not saying it in terms of being, what's the word I'm looking for? Oops, sorry. In terms of being, you know, shallow in terms of looks. I'm not talking about looks here. I'm talking about even just in terms of health. That, you know, an overweight body we know is not healthy. Okay, so a higher ideal is say, you know, I want to be a healthy person, so I'm going to have a healthy body. And that means eating different foods and making different choices. Because at any point in your life, at any moment when something arises, you always have two choices you can make. The one that's going to be for your higher good, and the one that isn't. As simple as that. There's two choices. That's it. So when you go to eat something, for instance, you go out to eat, and there's all these different restaurants or things to choose from, or even in a food court or something like that. It's always a healthy option. But let's be honest, you know, most people don't go for that. You know, they go for, you know, all the deep fried stuff and whatever it is, all the stuff that's not that healthy necessarily. And you know, or then even in terms of drink, I'll go, or I'll buy a Coke, you know, instead of getting some water or something else, you know, that's healthier. So the version of yourself that's eating unhealthily, you can't be that anymore. You've got to be someone else. That's it. Now, the transformation is not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. You've got to transform so much stuff, but you'll become a better version of yourself for it. And a whole bunch of other things follows through, because a healthy body leads to a healthy mind and vice versa. Okay, so we've got to work on all these things together. So I'm only giving an example here really about the food aspect. And so there's so many different things, but I hope you're sort of getting where I'm getting at with this. So we can look at food, okay, I'll eat better, and then maybe I'll start exercising, because I never did that before. But you're not doing this to impress anybody. This is for you, and you can pick an ideal in your mind. Just think, okay, who would I like to look like? Who would I like to be? And I don't mean just physically, but just what am I doing? What am I thinking? How am I talking? How can I see myself? How do I want to be? You know, I want to be someone who's got you know, smiles a lot. You know, these things are possible. This is it. Your mind is so powerful, right? And we can see how powerful it is because it's currently, you know, showing you the conditions right now of mania and depression. Okay, very powerful. Okay, we got to get a hold on that, and you can. This is the thing, you can. It's not easy. I've got to make that clear. This is not a quick, easy fix. This you know, you've got to go into this, you know, with knowing that this is not going to be an easy path, but it can be done. I got to a point where I had been suffering so much, I couldn't handle it anymore. And I said to my psychiatrist, look, I mean, her in particular, I said, I've been coming here for 10 years, right? Doing all the things, taking all the drugs. And I said, as I said at the start of this video, now I'm fat and I'm still unhappy and I'm still all these things. And I thought, you know what, I washed my hands with this. I thought, I'm going to work out how to fix myself. And in a sense, you could say that was a different version of myself too. It was like, that version was like, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm not giving over my power to people who can't help me. And it was, I mean, I didn't even know if I could do this. I didn't even know if I could achieve where I am today. I had no idea, but I knew I did not want to suffer anymore. So I started taking, effort to read everything I could about the mind. I started studying philosophies, because a lot of philosophies, particularly the Stoic philosophy, which is, if you look it up, Stoic, I may even put that down in the description or comment, because you don't have to think, oh, I'm not into philosophy. No, philosophy is actually quite great in many ways. I mean, a lot of it's there just to how do we deal with our day-to-day problems? How do we change our mindset about these things? And so again, I sort of went on a bit of a tangent before. What I was saying about we can't just turn everything over to the psychologist. We need to take action in our own lives. We've got to say, hey, what more can I do? What can I research? I mean, how many of you are actually researching? I'm not saying all of you aren't, but I know a number of you probably aren't. That saying, what more can I do to help myself? Keep researching, keep seeking. It's like the old quote from the New Testament. Seek and you'll find. I mean, there's different ways to apply that, but particularly in this context. And that's what I found. The more I seeked, I found a lot of information, and I helped myself. I really did help myself. So you got to ask yourself, just going to a therapist office, how often you go, and sitting there, and then doing nothing else, nothing's going to change. You're still the same person coming in with the same problem, talking about the same things essentially. Why would anything change, really, ultimately? I mean, I know some people get some traction in some ways, but even that is sort of limited. It's not really giving you the keys, because you're only solving this one particular issue, but you haven't ultimately transformed from within. And that is where the healing work comes from. But part of healing is actually pain. Yeah, I know, that's where people start running. I don't want to know about this. Well, you're already in pain anyway, so you're better off facing your problems. Because how many of us who are suffering, whether it be bipolar or anything else in life, turn to escapisms? I'll just drink myself to oblivion, take as many medications, I'll have more Valium, whatever it may be. That's not solving anything. You're doing the same thing as a psychiatrist. I don't know how to fix you. Here's some symptom blockers. It's not fixing anything either. It's not getting to the root cause. The root cause, what I have discovered, in my opinion, not just the other holistic approach to all the other things, like the food and what you watch and listen to, the people you're around, all the things. Not just that, but it's really getting to the core of asking ourselves, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? And that's where I had started. And initially, I'd sit there with my eyes closed, looking back inside my own mind, and just asking myself this question: why do I feel like this? And sometimes things would come up, and it would be a little uncomfortable at first, because I thought, oh no, I don't want to face this. But I realized in time that was the way that had to happen. And that's going back to my book. I'm not trying to self-promote this. I'm just referring to it. You don't have to buy it. I don't care. But that the title of the book is "The Way Out is Through the Way In." So to get out of this mess, you've got to go back in to get back out again. That's the only way. So we've formed these things in our own minds, which have got deep-seated, deep roots to them. Traumas of all kinds. Most people have them in some way or another. It varies, and we're all different, and we all go through different experiences, and we all have different capacity of what we can handle and take on. But really, we can't run from our problems. You can't. I mean, how many people try and do that in different ways, and I think, well, if I go to this new location, then it'll be better. But they can't, because they're still the same. They're still the same person, so nothing's going to change. It's just, we've got to change. We've got to face our problems. There's no escape from that. That's it. Whether you like to hear that or not, it's the truth. And I'm going to try and help the best I can to show people that. So I want to see people get better. Look, even if you don't get totally better, I'm absolutely certain if you take on board what I'm sharing with you, you're going to improve your life dramatically. Okay. Now, I know there's a big portion of you that's might like what I'm saying. Some of you might hate what I'm saying, but the thing is, even the ones who do, you might try for a little while and then give up. That's understandable. You might come back and forth, but look, whatever works for you. I mean, I'm not saying you have to follow what I'm saying. I'm saying what's worked for me. But I've spent a lot of time on studying this, not just studying it, but applying it to my own life, experimenting on myself in a sense. So, I have probably a lot more knowledge and definitely wisdom in terms of personal experience of what I can share with you that's going to be different outside of a therapist's office. As I said, they say you cannot be cured because through their system, you can't be cured. You cannot be cured with something that only blocks symptoms. It's not going to happen. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of kickback on this. I don't care. I'm telling you the truth. I don't really care. Whoever's listening to this and it helps, one person, well, that's all worth it. This has really always been my the reason I wrote this book in 2020 was I just wanted to help people. I thought, and my friend encouraged me. He said, look, you've got so much knowledge in this, you should really share this. You know, he's seen the transformation, as other people have in my life too. And that's where I want to get started at with all this stuff with everyone. And in this channel too, I'm just going to talk about bipolar. There's other things I'd like to share too, which is also related to, I guess, helping me get better as well. But anyway, I want to leave this here as my first sort of introduction video, I guess, in some way, talking about this from this capacity. I hope you find some, some information here that's useful to you in some way. Again, I'll put the information of my book if you're interested below too. So there's the PDF version and well, not the physical book at the moment. I had some trouble getting those. I'm getting some more, and then I've got the audio book. So that'll be down below. They're not very expensive. But listen, I'd love it if you leave a comment below what you think of this content or anything you'd like to know about. I'm happy to share, whatever I know on any topic related, or question, should I say, related to this topic. Excuse me. So this is it. We share information, we learn from one another, and we never know what we'll pick up from one person or another, which may really help us or help someone else. So I look forward to anything you've got to share and add below. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. And I'm going to keep providing these videos for you to help you the best I can. All right, thank you.